it's safe for you to process what you need to go through. There's no expectations as to what the outcome is. Your journey is your journey, and you are a sovereign being. Like I feel like what makes a good space is making people feel that they have autonomy. They have autonomy as to where they want to go, what their process is experiencing.
Welcome to the Space Holders Medicine Podcast. We're your hosts, Malvina and Stephanie. This podcast is a sanctuary for space holders to delve into the unique medicine they offer. Each episode will explore their personal journeys, diverse modalities, and the profound experiences that inspire and shape their work. Join us as we uncover the transformative power of their craft. Enjoy! Hi everyone, welcome to the Space Holders Medicine Podcast. My name is Stephanie and I'm here with my co-host Malvina, who is our guest for today, and I will be interviewing her and sharing her story with all of you. The purpose of the Space Holders Medicine Podcast is really to invite space holders to share their stories. And these are space holders of every right, from energy workers, energy healers, to teachers, to mothers or parents, to coaches and therapists in all fields. And today we will be speaking to Malvina and her journey into ceremonial space holding, which I'm very, very excited about. So, without further ado, perhaps let's just jump right into it. I wonder if Malvina, could you share a little about your personal journey into space holding and perhaps what led you onto this path?
Okay, that's really, thank you so much for that, Steph. So yeah, actually my journey into conscious space holding actually happened with Stephanie, right? So I think in the previous episode I also mentioned that that's also something that inspired me to, you know, do this podcast with Steph, because yeah, I've never felt that held before, and consciously be aware of it. Oh, so this is what it feels like to be held. And, quite frankly, I've always struggled thriving in like groups and communities. It took me a really long time to find like a community that I could feel safe in, as well as like partnerships and friendships and relationships that I could actually feel safe in. And Steph, you were able to plant that seed for me. And so as I continued that journey, and I think one of my, we were in group containers that you had, held space for. So I started, it was almost like baby steps without really being intentional about it, because I wasn't aware where things were going. Um but yeah, I just felt safe in the containers, the virtual containers they would hold. And then transitioning into Celeste's cacao ceremony, my first ever cacao ceremony. It was a very intimate group. There's only like four participants. But that's where I was like, holy crap, like this is how it feels like to be held in a space, in a group, in a ceremonial space. And I feel like that's where it started for me. And I wanted to be able to share that because of how much it had influenced or impacted me in a very positive way. So yeah.
That's really beautiful, Mel. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's very inspiring to be able to witness your journey from, I think it was April last year, all the way till April this year. 1 year later, here we are speaking about space holding.
Yeah.
Really touches my heart. I wonder if you could maybe speak a little bit more. I'm like laughing as this question is coming forth because it looks like we are in space.
Yes, we are.
But could you speak a little bit more of the concept about holding space, what that means to you personally, and how do you integrate it into your life and work, your life work?
Yeah. So my understanding of space holding is just because I've never been to therapy before. So I have never really had like that concept of just being held until, I met you. But for me, my understanding of it really is there's no judgment in the space. It's just so safe to be me,
Mm.
whatever I'm processing, whatever I'm experiencing in stillness or in like, extreme emotions or expressions. There's no judgment around that. There's no trying to fix it or trying to come towards a solution. It's just being held and being witnessed. And when I experienced that, I was like, wow, like I didn't realize how possible it is, because often my interactions throughout my life was that, everyone's just trying to talk over each other. Everyone's just trying to give solutions. Everyone's just trying to fix something. Everyone just wants to get their voice in. So
Mm.
there's no space to actually process what's going through, because it's always there's just an interference of sorts. Um, so I feel like that's what space holding is, and that's what it means to me, just to be held, just to be held, and there's no there's no goal, just to be held. And I feel like that's really really important. Um, it's so conditioned, at least for me, in how I grew up. It's so conditioned to always be like, oh my God, just trying to jump in and like solve it. Although that has its place and time, I feel that it creates some kind of interference or a block for us to be able to access stuff deeper that actually wants to come out, because we've already like um found a way to try and fix it, as opposed to it's kind of like a band-aid as opposed to allowing for things to emerge through that through a space that's like safe.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. When you say that, it just makes me think about how each of us already have our own resource to access our inner wisdom or the next steps. And the medicine truly is in the space that's available for the person
Yeah.
to delve deeper, deeper, deeper into themselves instead of receiving an answer
Mhm.
or a suggestion from the outside world.
Yeah.
But from what it sounds like, the space holder's medicine is really literally to hold that space for the client, the person
Mhm.
to go deep within
Yeah.
themselves, which sounds very shamanic.
Yeah. And another thing that I want to add is like my my earlier experiences in space holding really was in like healing arts, like in a space where there's an intention to basically the space has holds the intention of like a session, for example. It's not necessarily through an environment that exists in a personal manner. So I do still find myself you know trying to deprogram,
Mm,
because at least for me, if something within like personal relationships through family and friends, if there's like a way that we've always interacted and
mm,
communicated, that's just the programming. It's implanted in
mm,
there. So I'm trying to now consciously integrate what my experiences are through these ceremonies, gatherings, one-on-one um healing spaces, and find ways to like migrate that as well, or I'll extend that into my personal life, because I don't feel like it just ends in those spaces. If it does, then I feel like it defeats the whole point. um yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
I love that. And at the same time, there is such a strong intention when we are in those healing spaces, the ritualistic ceremonial space whereby it's clear the boundaries of the container is clear, the intention of what the purpose of this space is for is clear. Whereas when we are relating to our friends and our families, our co-workers, it's it's less of a clear boundary or container of what there is, and it takes pure real conscious awareness and presence on our part to translate these skills of presence and without jumping in to rescue
Mhm.
or to fix some
Yeah,
the situation for others.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I wonder if you can describe some of the spaces that you hold and the communities that you currently served or that you served in the past. And what are some common threads that connect these spaces for you?
Yeah, so my main thing is, holding cacao ceremonies.
Mm,
And I've just developed such like a beautiful relationship with Mama Cacao just because of her heart opening spirit. I feel held by Mama Cacao every time I sit with her, right? And so this extends through the into the spaces that I hold, the ceremonies that I hold. Um, and so the common thread that I notice with the different ceremonies that I've held so far is, hmm, people often just want or need their hearts to be held in a space, right? Because there's our day to day experiences always, we encounter different things, and there's certain ways that we react or respond. And sometimes it's to protect ourselves. We have ego in the mix, and sometimes, we're dealing with external factors. So the common thread that I find through the ceremonies that I hold is just allowing for their truth to be held from the core of their heart space. What really is present, um, what's really present in there. Um, so that's usually the intention that I also try to set when I hold these gatherings, um, for people to be able to connect with that.
wow.
So it's not only their heart space being held through the gathering, through community, but also them holding space for that, for themselves. Yeah. So this is what I find, um, that's pretty common. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds so empowering, like the medicine of cacao enabling for all of us. And I really do enjoy and appreciate your cacao ceremonies. It allows for all of us to access the inner truth that lies within. It sounds really effortless and just trusting of the medicine and
Mm.
then the space that you're holding. Yeah, I wonder if you could share a little bit about your journey with cacao, like from your first meeting with her to what inspired for you to learn to facilitate cacao ceremonies, and what your journey of your initiation into being a cacao facilitator was like to regularly hosting
Mhm.
cacao ceremonies.
Yeah. So before I even attended a Celeste's ceremony, I started to sit with cacao, but I've never really had any knowledge or experience in sitting with her before. I just went for it. I purchased ceremonial cacao and experimented with her. And I feel like that's where it started, just co-creating with her.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and every day or every other day because my body's heaty. um, like I yeah, I would sit with her, whether it's in a meditative state or I take her to a park, sit with her in nature, and just allow for her to hold space for me.
mm,
Um, and I found it very interesting when the first few times that I experienced her, because I didn't really know what to expect, at least physiologically. I just felt like a light buzzing feeling, and I just, so gentle. She's so gentle, and I was able to just surrender into her and connect with myself and my heart deeper. Um, so that's where it first started. And then I sat through Celeste's ceremony and a few others where I was just like, okay, this is what it feels like to sit with Mama Cacao in community. The power of community, it's something that I've never really appreciated before I started this journey, right? Because there's a lot of wounds behind being in community, at least throughout my experience growing up and just throughout my life. I just felt betrayed, unsafe. So it was very impactful to me just to be in a community space and sitting with such a heart opening medicine where everyone is just communicating in a way truthfully from where they are. They don't have to overshare or, you know, there's no judgment or expectations around the people in the space. And yet there's a sense of feeling held by everyone because there's no expectations um, around that circle or what it's supposed to be or how it's supposed to feel like. And so I was like, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's when I was like, okay, I want to be able to hold these spaces for people as well. And it's also very, very healing for me, right? So each ceremony that I conduct, sure, I'm here to serve. I love to serve, and but yeah, I also feel like it's very much for me as well. It's medicine for me to be able to do that. Um, yeah, and so I was like, okay, I want to be able to learn more about holding cacao ceremonies in a very integral manner because I just have so much respect for her medicine. So that's when I did a mentorship under Cape Cacao led by this woman from South Africa named Fran. And it was like, I think it's a 3 month mentorship, one-on-one mentorship, where, we just, dove deep into cacao and her medicine. But most of the sessions actually, sure, there's like informational modules about cacao, but a lot of our calls and our meetings actually doesn't have to do anything with cacao. It's a lot about like processing shadow integration, and all that stuff, right? So it's a lot of really deep core conversations, and I just felt very, very held by her as well, as she observes what I'm processing. Um, and yeah, it was just such a beautiful space and container that we had. And that's when I was able to also deepen my relationship with cacao, because even though it was not directly related to cacao, there's a weaving into the medicine. And cacao is not just like, something that we drink and consume. You know, often in the spaces, no, always in the spaces that I hold, I tell people don't have to drink the medicine if you don't feel like it. Sometimes sitting with her is enough. There's the medicine of the physical drink, and there's the medicine of her energy and her spirit. So I find that it's very important to point those two things out. Um, so yeah, that's when my relationship with Mama Cacao went deeper, and I felt like I was able to hold better spaces because of it.
Mm.
There's no expectations. It's taught me to not fall into the pitfalls of projection,
Mm.
right? Like if certain people are acting a certain way, I just need to hold, I just need to hold space for them, right? So yeah, that's kind of what my journey has been, and it's been very, very magical. At the end of the day, I'm just a vessel. I'm just a vessel showing up so that people have a space to show up to and journey into themselves.
It's really inspiring, especially the part about the different ways in receiving the medicine. It doesn't have to look like one way. We don't have to reach the bottom of the cup to get the full medicine, but it's really receiving and acknowledging her essence, cacao, Mama Cacao's essence, and already being in that sacred ceremonial space with the intention of being there. I wonder if there was a specific moment or insight or profound discovery that you connected with during your training with friend that informs how or feeds into how you hold space
Yeah.
or how you share cacao, especially like when you were speaking to projections in space holding, or if there's any other uh way that it feeds into how you carry or facilitate
Yeah.
cacao ceremonies or hold space in daily life.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like there's a few. I mean, before my training or when I was still very new at this, there's always some kind of fear about, oh my gosh, why are people doing this? Why are people not reacting this way? There's but it's a projection of me, and I'm just like, am I doing the right thing? Am I even worthy of this work? Right? So there's a lot of that that's getting in the way of me holding space for people because now I'm making it about me. you know so the more I was exposed, or the more I put myself in spaces, or through the training with Fran, it really allowed me to embody and realize that it's really not about me. um it's about really holding space for the people showing up. And yeah, because especially in I feel that in healing spaces, of course triggers are going to come up. People might respond in certain ways that might not be comfortable for them as well as for me. And if and when it does affect me, I suppose one of the things that I learned from Fran as well is just like, hey, you don't have to deal with it right then and there because you're holding space. I'm holding space for people. It's just like, just keep that at the back of your head. Because, like I said, each space or each container that I hold, there's something in there for me. There's a lesson for me to take away. Um, but during is not where it's meant to be processed because I'm holding space for people. So whatever people are going through, I'm just meant to make sure that they feel safe in whatever they're processing and dealing with. And then after the ceremony ends, during my own time of reflection, then I can deal with whatever's come up for me personally during the ceremony. Um, yeah, so I feel like that's one of like the strongest takeaways that I've had throughout, my training and throughout the few ceremonies that I've held so far. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And I guess
Yeah.
this segues us into our next question, which is I wonder if you could share a bit more about what makes a brilliant space holder.
Mm. Ah, what makes a brilliant space holder? I'm trying to like think about all the safe spaces that I was held into and how I try to integrate that into to my ceremonies as well. Uh, I find myself feeling like safe when the space is held tight. When there's no like looseness around it, where there's like a strong container
Mhm.
held within the space. Um, whether it's creating not even a structure, right? Just like a loose, yeah, sure, I guess we can call it a structure, but just kind of like an outline. It's whether it's either present energetically or set verbally, I notice. So at least, I mean, of course, I would do my best to impart that into the spaces that I hold. So I'll just share how I usually start my spaces these days. I definitely kind of, I don't want to call them ground rules, but I just create some kind of um notes for the participants that show up, like with regards to, hey, like it's safe for you to process what you need to go through. There's no expectations as to what the outcome is. Your journey is your journey, and you are a sovereign being. Like I feel like what makes a good space is making people feel that they have autonomy. They have autonomy as to where they want to go, what their process is experiencing, without questioning whether they're doing the right thing, whether they're doing it properly. Because if they're in that space, they won't be able to drop in deeply because they're always thinking about if they're screwing things up. Um, and of course, one of the things that is very, very important, I feel, is also making sure that everyone in the space respects each other, space and process. So a lot of consent. If, let's say we're in a sharing circle, if someone wants to say something to another person, consent is very important. Um, and it also allows um, to reduce the risk of like projection towards another person. Um, so yeah, I feel like these things are what like I find important in space holding. Um, yeah, and I feel like creating that safe container will allow people to be able to journey freely, just because
Mm.
that's in place. Yeah.
Amazing. I wonder if you could share maybe some of the or one of the most beautiful moments you've experienced as a space holder in the journey of your participants, or um, something that your participant has received from your
Mhm.
medicine.
Yeah. Well, I haven't held much, I think. Held a lot of ceremonies. Um, Again, I feel like this is a good example again also of like what I perceive and what they're going through. Sorry, this is a little seg, but
Yeah.
you know, I realize that often what I witness of what they're experiencing in circle on the mat doesn't necessarily dictate what they're going through internally. Um, and people just express their processes differently. So I'm trying to recall, but like there have been, a few instances where I feel like the people who are not receiving it because they're just very like still or not doing anything or not like they're not receiving, they're not, experiencing the medicine deeply, but in fact sometimes they're the ones who are telling me like, wow, I just had a breakthrough, or like, wow, I feel like it was such a turning point for me. And I was just like, okay, so that was very important feedback for me as well, because it made me realize like, hey, people have their own journeys. Um, yeah, and also, yeah, I've held spaces for people who have never experienced cacao before. So for me, it's just like, okay, I really don't know how they're gonna come out of it. Um, and it's always been very pleasant. Like however they come out of it has always been very like heartfelt, like very they've never they've never expected cacao to be able to, you know, support them in this way. So yeah, these are some of the experiences that I've had with participants. It's just like unexpected. The people who I feel like I don't expect it, not that I should be expecting it from people, but naturally, often within these spaces after the ceremony, people will always come up and say, "Oh, like that's really wonderful," blah blah blah. But there are a few that you don't really know where they're where they stand, and so those are the ones that sometimes surprise me based on where they've journeyed. Yes. But that answers
Wonderful.
the question. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Um, on the flip side,
Hmm.
I wonder if you could share a story of a time whereby you were being held space for and it didn't really feel quite safe or quite right or aligned for you. And what was it about the container
Hmm.
or the experience that um, maybe didn't informed you what not to do or what to do or what to learn from this experience?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna name what it is, but I will share the experience itself. Well, it's not the space that I was in. It wasn't really intended to be like a sacred space, but it is within like a healing space. Um, and there was a lot of things about it that I just didn't feel safe in. Like I couldn't, like I respected the medicine a lot within that space, but there was something about that space that I just didn't feel safe in, and I just was distracted by how unsafe I felt within the space. And the few things that I noticed is there's a lot of idolizing, like
Mm,
putting people up on a pedestal. So that's another thing that I want to impart in my space. Like everyone's equal. I'm not better, or I'm just here to hold space. Literally, we're just journeying in this together. So yeah, that's one of the things that I felt was very present. Like putting the person up on a pedestal, and I feel like there's a lot of danger in that because then you're not really being sovereign. Are you like if if you take that person's word as Bible. That person's human at the end of the day, right? So I feel like it's important for us to have like a strong sense of discernment and just be witnessing everyone play that role of like putting this person up on a pedestal was really, really uncomfortable for me. And also the theatrics. There's a lot of theatrics within the space that I felt were like not genuine for
right.
whatever reason, whether they felt, I'm not, I'm not saying that it was 100% like theatrics, but like a huge part of it I felt from an intuitive perspective was whether they're trying to perform for the guru, or there's an expectation set, not because there's an expectation for the person holding the space, but because ground rules were not set in place that, hey, whatever you're processing is your process. There's no need to become because you're trying to perform or like meet a certain expectation. um so yeah, that didn't feel aligned to me, because then everyone in the space felt like they needed to do that. So everyone started, majority of the group started doing that. um what else? But yeah, those are the few things that really stood out for me within that space. And it's very like, yeah, it just didn't feel like it was held tightly. Like was no consent around things. um so yeah, I feel like that was one of the most like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that, you know this is possible within a healing space. So yeah, I was able to, because of how much it affected me, I was like, okay, I need to make sure I need to make sure that the spaces that I hold don't carry these energies or projections. So yes, that's that's what I experienced.
Mm, beautiful.
Ah.
I wonder what you might say to someone whom you felt might be um, teetering on the edge of being theatrical or performative in the space that you hold, or if you've ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah, what I would say, I mean, without making the person feel like they're being attacked or, you know projected on, I would say that, hey, like honor where you're at, honor your truth, not because of what people is expecting of you or what you feel like you need to do,
Yeah.
right? Because yeah, that would be an interference to your own process. However, it might look like it's perfect, as long as it's aligned to your truth and your process. There's no need to yeah, perform. There's no need to show up in a way that's different to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with showing up in a way that's different to others, as long as it's aligned to you. Yeah.
Beautiful. With that, I wonder what advice you would give to individuals who are aspiring to become space holders, who are currently navigating their journey, their own space holding journey.
Mm. I feel that space holding is not just about holding space for others, but also it involves a lot of inner work, right? Because through the inner work that we do for ourselves, it'll limit the projections, it'll limit the interference between us and holding space for others. And also, I think you mentioned this in the previous episode, like being able to learning how to hold space for ourselves. I think that's super, super important. Whether it's just allowing for yourself to process what you need to process, and being able to be truthful if there's anything that you're experiencing, any shadows that you need to look at any which moment, your triggers, like being able to hold space for that, I feel like is one of the number one initial steps or tips. And then, when you're in a space, holding space for people or individuals, whether it's within like a gathering or personal relations, it's just being able to witness them, being able to witness them process, even if they're like babbling and like it's their process, So if your intent is to hold space for someone, it's just something to keep in mind that, hey, they just need they just need to be held. That's all. No need to try and fix anything, no need to try to give a solution unless it's something that they requested for, then that's something else. But if they just need if they just need like an actual space to let everything out, that's all that you're there to do. That's all that you need to do. And I feel like grounding is super, super important as well. Being able to embody that groundedness and being steady in the way that you hold space for people. Otherwise, it will be felt. It will be
Mm.
felt if you're not embodied and you're just like, ooh, floating around. And I feel like doing, being in spirit and energy work, actually, that is, it's an integration. Our bodies need to be able to hold space for our energetic, spiritual experiences. Um, and yeah, this is part of our journey, and being able to have both meet will allow you to be a steady space holder. Yeah.
Such wisdom. Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
You're
Mel.
welcome.
Personally, how do you cultivate self-care and also prevent burnout
Mhm.
while holding space for others?
Yeah, so I used to have a very like martyr approach to life, and throughout my relations I'm always burnt, right? Like I'll just go dive deep and like it's not even space holding because I'm trying to fix stuff with these people, and it just burns me, and I just walk away tired and just traumatized over and over and over again. Um, so as I stepped into this journey, I've really, and I'm still learning to navigate
Mm.
around it. Self-care rituals would be like sitting with Mama Cacao almost every morning if I can, sitting in meditation, sitting with spirit, going to nature, just having that space for myself. I love my alone time. Like because it's where I'm really able to hear myself. I think that's part of holding space for myself as well. Um, yeah, I feel like for me that's super, super valuable. And I enjoy like painting or creating like digital art without really, they're super abstract, so they have zero structure at all. So just having that space to like be able to express that. Um, yeah, that supports me with like space holding for others just because I've created space for myself. By creating space for myself and allowing myself to process what it needs to process, I feel like it creates capacity. It widens the capacity for me to be able to hold space for others. It widens the container. Um, and it's not an overnight thing. It's I feel like it's a lifetime thing. It's a lifetime thing, and I'm more than happy to keep doing it because it really truly nourishes me. It's very nourishing for me. It's not something that I have to do. It's something that like wow, it's like it's like eating. It's something that I need to do, you know? It's part of my life now, and yeah, I feel like that creates capacity for me to hold space for others.
It sounds really steady, like all of the different practices that you engage in that brings you joy, that that feeds you, that nourishes you is other ingredients in holding a really steady, trustworthy vessel in which others can just rest upon in and remember themselves and see themselves.
Thank you so much. And another thing that I want to add to that actually is being in spaces where I'm there to receive.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, space holders need space holding too from others.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of value in that, you know, and there's a lot of learning in those spaces as well to be better space holders for others. So, yeah, like, yes, it's very, I'm grateful because I enjoy all these. Yeah, nourishing rituals and practices.
Yeah. Speaking of space holders also needing space holding,
Mhm.
in your opinion, what role does vulnerability play in effective space holding? And also, how might you personally balance vulnerability with professionalism?
Mm. At least, okay, so just starting with like healing spaces and ceremonies. Also, one of the things that I've, you know, it's, I feel like it's something that we already inherently know, but sitting, like being in a container with Fran, it was just like a constant reminder where we're just holding people with compassion. We're, you know, connecting with people from the heart. So it is already vulnerable to begin with. It's already a vulnerable space to begin with. It's interesting. I mean, this is just coming to me now, but I feel like it's a dance between the masculine and the feminine, right? So the masculine aspect is what creates the steadiness and the safety for people to be to feel safe within the container, and then the feminine is recognizing the vulnerability that it's safe to be vulnerable within these spaces. And I feel like that's, you know, like if it's just one without the other, I feel like something is missing. Um, and having both, I feel like creates a balance between vulnerability and professionalism. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's a very, very important thing. Yeah. Allowing the vulnerability to feel safe within the structure that holds it. And
Yeah,
having a steady structure that allows freedom for vulnerabilities to show up and
yeah.
be.
Thank you. Have you um had an experience of when you felt like you were really, really teetering on the edge of vulnerability, maybe almost like I'm going to lose it, um, and navigating that dance with still being professional,
Mm, let me feel. Let me think.
maybe
Um,
even as a receiver.
Right. I feel that also going back to the experience where I didn't feel help,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I felt like I had to hold space for myself,
Yeah.
um, and be able to receive the knowledge and the medicine and the learnings from that experience still.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to do that, I need to feel safe. My vulnerability, my heart needed to feel safe. Um, so I kind of had to create that for myself. Otherwise, because it was a pretty long container. Like, I mean, not long with a matter of days, but during that session, it's not like a 1 or 2 hour thing. It's pretty long, and I just felt like, am I gonna just allow for this to trigger me? Am I just gonna allow for this to continue for the full duration of this space, or I have the sovereignty and autonomy to do something about it
Mm.
and be able to allow my masculine to shut shut the distractions out, create like a steady space so that I can really hear energetically what I'm meant to receive in that container.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really powerful and empowering.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And also a demonstration of um embodying sovereignty and
Mm,
making a decision in the present moment as it needs to be made. Yeah. Mm. I wonder how you might see the landscape of space holding evolving in
mm,
the future. And also, like, perhaps what potential challenges or opportunities you might anticipate.
mm. I feel like space holding is the future. And I'm really, really excited about that because I feel like a lot of people are now being more aware or becoming more aware and waking up to the value of space holding and understanding. I suppose this is why we're doing this podcast is because it's so important and it's just like it gives my heart joy just to like think about space holding because that's how we're meant to interact with each other, um, not just through healing spaces but in our personal lives for the people that we don't even know, like people that we encounter across the street, just there's something there's something like I see you, I see you, like, and I mean, it's a totally different, separate conversation, but I feel like it'll prevent wars from happening and we're able to hold space for each other. And I feel like that's where it's headed, and just because everyone needs to be held. Everyone needs to be held. So if more people understand what space holding is, and it's not difficult. It's actually not. You just need to be there and hold space for another person. I mean, yes, okay, maybe I'm trivializing it, but basically, of course, we do need to do a lot of work. But I
Yes.
suppose it comes hand in hand, right? Like holding space for other people also means that we need to work on ourselves.
Yeah.
And for other people to hold space for us, they also need to do the same thing. So it's kind of like a fair game to that sense, right? Um, and I feel like that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. But with regards of challenges, I do feel that it will take a while for us to get there because there's a lot of things to shed. There's a lot of programming that needs to be reprogrammed, and dismantled. But that's part of the process. That's going to be part of the process. And it's a kind of thing where it might get a little ugly before it could get better.
Mm.
And that's perfectly fine because that's people honoring their truth through that ugliness or discomfort, right? It's not just all about love and light. It's never just about love and light. We are more than that. We're a spectrum of different shades of emotions, of different aspects of ourselves that need space to be held for, right? So I feel like it's something that we're veering towards, um, and yeah, is collectively happening as well. So yeah. And in the future, I feel like that would be the way we communicate and interact with each other, just
Beautiful.
through space holding and the energies and the frequencies around that. Yeah.
I have goosebumps.
Yay.
I especially love what you said about being able to process our own stuff, because when we are able to sit with our own darkness instead of rejecting it and only veering towards the higher frequencies or the love and the light and everything that we associate with that, it doesn't give us the strength, resilience, capacity to hold space for another's darkness.
Mm,
And it's exactly that, right? Which um gives us the reflex to want to heal or want to solve a problem or want to rescue somebody. It's because we are unable to witness them in discomfort,
mm,
or we're unable to hold the discomfort within ourselves that maybe their behavior might bring up. So it's beautiful what you said about when we are able to, when we have the courage to meet the demons, the darkness within ourselves. It's exactly that which gives us the very steady vessel that enables us to hold really safe and secure space
mm.
for others, as well as ourselves and all of our parts, the
Yeah.
whole community inside here.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. We are a whole community within
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. The whole constellation.
Yes.
Yeah. And to close us off, could you share a guiding principle or mantra that encapsulates your approach to space holding?
Mm. My approach to space holding.
Something that
Prob-
informs space
Yeah,
holding for you.
it's more of a reminder, if anything, that we are as space holders, we're just meant to be a steady vessel. We're a steady vessel. That's it. We're not trying to do anything. Sure, we're a vessel as we transmit the medicine and hold, space for people, but we are a vessel. And also that goes into the idea that people do have their own medicine, right? What we're here to do is to create space for people to tap into their own medicine. So, yes, I feel like that's a principle that I always carry. I'm just here. I'm just here. I show up. I hold space for people. I'm just a vessel. That's all.
Mm.
Yeah, so people can journey where they're meant to. Yeah.
Really, really powerful. And I'm so excited to continue co-creating this world of space holders
Yeah.
um, alongside with you and with everyone else who are currently practicing this in their own rights.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. There's so much for us, I feel like, to discover and be inspired by,
Yeah.
like, other space holders, how they do it, their perspectives. It's just, yeah, I'm very, very excited. And I'm very excited to share it with everybody.
Exactly. And
Yes.
also like their journey that informs their medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful, Melvina. Thank you so much for sharing your story so honestly and also inspiring us all with your experience and your wisdom and also your groundedness. I feel like through listening to you speak and share and reflect, it gives such great insights as to how you hold your containers.
Thank you. Well, thank you for planting that seed in me a year ago. So,
A year ago. Oh my goodness. All right. I really look forward to connecting with you again with our next guest.
yeah.
And yeah, and sharing and spreading the medicine of space
Mm,
holding
mm.
through this journey.